Chapter 2, Turning Around, Part 2. Blind Date. Mosheng exclaimed in a raised voice. Lower your voice. Fairy Huaxian covered her mouth. Mosheng tried to ask again, but Fairy Huaxian warned her, don't make a sound, got it? Mosheng quickly nodded. Once Fairy Huaxian released her hand, Mosheng asked, you're going on a blind date? Not just me, it's both of us. Me? Why? Mosheng seemed a little dazed. In our social circle, you and I are the oldest ones without boyfriends. If we don't hurry, we might end up unmarried. Don't you know? Fairy Huaxian flipped through her daily planner, saying, today's target is a systems engineer from XX company. Both of us are going. You can go by yourself. I'm not going. There are two of them. I can't handle both. Sheng, haven't I treated you well? Whether I can get married this year depends entirely on you. Fairy Huaxian looked pitifully at her, like an abandoned puppy. You can arrange one at a time. No, that's inefficient. Plus, I need your help. What kind of help? Mosheng cautiously asked. Fairy Huaxian's requests were usually beyond what an ordinary person could do. As expected, Fairy Huaxian took out a bunch of things from her desk: thick-rimmed glasses, strangely styled wigs, large hoop earrings, and a very colorful outfit. What's this? Mosheng stared at the pile of things. It's to make you look less attractive and highlight my beauty. Am I the umpteenth victim of this? As soon as it was time to leave work, Fairy Huaxian dragged her downstairs. Finally reaching the ground floor, Fairy Huaxian shouted, "Oh! I forgot my must-win lipstick." She rushed back up to grab the supposedly must-win lipstick for blind dates. Mosheng waited at the entrance when suddenly she felt a scorching gaze. Following the line of sight, she was surprised to see Yichen. Their eyes met, and he nodded at her. Her heart skipped a beat. Could he be here to find her? It had been almost a month since the silent dinner, and they hadn't contacted each other since then. Could he be here to see her? Her feet moved involuntarily toward him. Why are you here? Waiting for someone. He replied briefly. Oh, waiting. Yichen. Accompanied by a tender voice, a slim and beautiful woman appeared in her line of sight, making Mosheng's heart sink. The person I was waiting for is here. I'll leave first. He calmly told her and walked away with the woman. Okay, goodbye. She stood there in a daze, watching them walk towards the parking area. She couldn't muster the strength to move her feet until Fairy Huaxian appeared, pulling her away. What are you standing there for? Let's go. We're running late, and I need to do your makeup. Remember, you have to act a little less. There was no need to pretend. At the blind date banquet, Mosheng indeed appeared dull and slow, perfectly contrasting Fairy Huaxian's radiant image. He came to wait for her again. Looking down from the French window, Mosheng saw Yichen standing downstairs in a simple shirt and trousers, exuding an air of elegance. He had been coming here every 4 or 5 days this month, and then he would leave with that beautiful woman. Today was a weekend, and he came again. He had never waited for her before. Sheng. Fairy Huaxian called out like a ghost. It's a weekend today. You're coming with me. Fine. Ha. Fairy Huaxian was taken aback. Do you know what I'm up to? Blind date. Mosheng said unenthusiastically. After her excellent performance last time, Fairy Huaxian had been dragging her along every weekend to accompany her to dates. But it was quite fun to accompany her to blind dates. Mosheng didn't have to worry about anyone liking her, she just needed to eat and watch Fairy Huaxian show off. However, who's the person today? A young and talented guy, a surgeon, and we're having Western cuisine. Ha ha ha. Seeing how smug Fairy Huaxian looked, Mosheng couldn't help but laugh. She really had a way with blind date candidates, each one better than the last. But she had never actually caught one. Instead, for some inexplicable reason, they would become her good friends or friends' husbands. At the age of 29, Fairy Huaxian had sworn to marry any man available. Due to the need to dress up early, Mosheng left work on time, inevitably running into Yichen downstairs. Mosheng wanted to walk past with her head down, but unexpectedly, Fairy Huaxian suddenly stopped and glared fiercely at Yichen, and the beautiful woman beside him. This is outrageous. Fairy Huaxian gritted her teeth. Before Mosheng could react, she was already dragged over to Yichen and the beautiful woman. Vixen, you're trying to seduce men again. The beautiful woman, contrary to her usual gentleness, retorted fiercely, blind date maniac, you're pulling someone else to accompany you on a blind date. She glanced at Mosheng. She's much prettier than you. You can expect to be a wallflower forever, unable to get married. The two of them started arguing like this, leaving Mosheng dumbfounded. She awkwardly greeted Yichen, hi. His expression seemed grim, and of course, who would be happy when their girlfriend was called a vixen? Sorry, she's like that, speaks without thinking. Mosheng tried to help Fairy Huaxian. Yichen's gaze seemed like he could kill someone, and his voice turned icy. You're going on a blind date? Yes. Mosheng didn't know how to respond, but her hesitant attitude confirmed it. He didn't say anything and just gave her a dark look before turning and walking away. Yichen, wait for me. The beautiful woman who was arguing with Fairy Huaxian followed him as soon as he left. Mosheng temporarily had no time to sort out her feelings because Fairy Huaxian's expression was quite peculiar. She was crying. Fairy Huaxian, who was always playful, was crying. Xiao Hong, it's shameful to cry when you can't win an argument. You don't understand. Fairy Huaxian looked at her with teary eyes. She stole my first boyfriend. Oh, so it was a deep grudge. Mosheng immediately shared her resentment and patted Fairy Huaxian's shoulder. Wherever there are people, there are beautiful women. Let's find someone great tonight to make her jealous. I'm not mad that she stole the guy I liked. I'm mad that she stole him and didn't cherish him, causing him to have an accident. She even abandoned him when his leg was broken. How could she do that? Why does he still love her? Why doesn't he like me, just because I'm not as pretty as her? Sob. Mosheng was stunned. She never expected that the daydreaming Fairy Huaxian had such a story. Was it true that the more outwardly cheerful a person is, the more fragile their heart? Because she had been comforting her, they were both late for the blind date, and Mosheng didn't have time to put on her unattractive makeup. Fairy Huaxian was feeling down and, for once, didn't actively try to be playful. And then, the two outstanding surgeons unexpectedly took an interest in them. Oh my goodness! Was this a blessing in disguise? Because the men were overly enthusiastic, the four of them went to watch a movie, sing, and have supper, and they didn't return home until after 11 p.m. Seeing her home, Mosheng finally breathed a sigh of relief. Dr. Zhang, I've arrived home. Thank you for escorting me. Oh. Dr. Zhang stopped talking about heart disease and said gentlemanly, Good night, Miss Xiao. I hope you had a pleasant day. I did, good night. Mosheng smiled and waited until he had gone before going upstairs. The corridor's light was broken, making it a bit gloomy. As she approached the door on the 4th floor, she fumbled for her keys. Suddenly, a tall dark figure appeared in her line of sight, and Mosheng was startled, dropping her keys to the ground. You. Before she could finish speaking, she was pulled into a firm embrace, and without any warning, her lips were forcefully pressed upon. He relentlessly ravished her lips, the fiery kiss even spreading to her neck, as if he wanted to pour out all his suppressed anger. His hands unbuttoned her collar, and she felt a slight chill, but it was quickly covered and devoured by his lips and tongue. Mosheng hadn't even had a chance to react before she was caught up in this unexpected whirlwind of passion and confusion, with a faint scent of alcohol in the ambiguous air. Alcohol. He had been drinking. Mosheng regained a bit of clarity and called out, breathless, Yichen. His movements paused and stopped. His head was still buried in her neck as he panted heavily. After a long while, she heard his hoarse voice, I lost. What did he mean? After all these years, I still lost to you, a complete defeat. Why did his voice sound so sorrowful? Yichen, what are you saying? Are you drunk? She asked anxiously. Silence, and then he abruptly pushed her away. His beautiful eyes flashed with disheveled frustration and anger, and he coldly and soberly said, I'm not drunk, I'm crazy. He turned and disappeared suddenly, just as suddenly as he had appeared. If it weren't for the faint tingling on her lips, she would have thought it was a ridiculous dream. Picking up the keys from the ground and opening the door, she stood dumbfounded at the entrance. If the phone hadn't suddenly rung, she wouldn't have known how long she would have stood there. She picked up the phone and heard Fairy Huaxian's excited voice, Sheng, how did it go? How did what go? Mosheng couldn't catch up. Quickly tell me. Did Dr. Zheng show any interest? Did he ask you out again? No. How is that possible? Fairy Huaxian exclaimed. He looked very satisfied. That cooperated so well in listening to his heart disease and love lecture. What about you? Mosheng didn't want to discuss it further and went straight to the point. He asked me to watch a movie tomorrow. He. Terrifying laughter came from the other end. Sheng, starting tomorrow, I'm going to act like a lady.